This is Steve Adubato, and this, more importantly, is the Steve Adubato Leadership Hour with my colleague and friend, Mary Gamba, who is an exceptional leader. She runs our company, Stand and Deliver, our website. This is like the first of about 20 plugs of our website, stand-deliver.com. Mary Gamba's in the house. How you doing, Mary?
I'm doing great today. How are you, Steve?
I'm doing great. We're going to be talking a little bit about time management and leadership. And you may ask, why are you talking about time management and leadership? Well, it's because I just left the gym. I didn't leave enough time to get myself focused, even though I've been thinking about the radio show for days. And I came in all clammy and sweaty. And this seems to be a pattern of mine, but we'll talk about time management, prioritizing, and whether there's a psychological issue to running in at the last minute.
That's why I don't go to the gym. So that's why I don't get sweaty and clammy before we do our show.
Oh, is that why you don't go?
Yes, exactly.
Fascinating.
It's a lot safer.
Mary, you always have insight on things. But I'm going to also do this. We're going to be joined by our great friend, Nick Matarazzo, who is not just a great personal friend of mine and of Mary's, but also as the president of Hearst Autos. Nicky's been... We were college friends. He was actually in the Hall of Fame at Montclair State University, not for academics, as I was, but for basketball. He was a great point guard. We'll be talking about leadership, his experience in the magazine business, in the digital business, understanding auto, understanding consumers, and also we're golf partners, so he can also talk about leadership and having a calm demeanor in the face of adversity. Nicky will be joining us in just a minute. But Mary, I want to also say this. We're taping... and we're going to date ourselves, but it's okay. We're taping the day after an event in Helsinki where President Donald Trump, who I've written about extensively in my book.
Your book is called Lessons in Leadership.
Which can be gotten.
If they go to stand-deliver.com, they can reach out to me directly, and I would be happy to make that happen.
Yeah, okay. We'll plug the book later. I talk about Donald Trump. I talk about Hillary Clinton. I talk about Barack Obama. I talk about a whole range of leaders, the things they do well and the things they make mistakes. In that book, Lessons in Leadership. I remember writing about Donald Trump during the election saying one of the things, whether you agree or disagree with him politically, and this is not a political show, not a partisan show, not an ideological show, it's a show about leadership. After Helsinki, I don't know what's going to happen in the next days or the weeks ahead, but Republicans, Democrats, people whom I respect, Dan Coates, the Director of National Intelligence, Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, who is anything but a Democratic liberal, if you will, and others. By the way, Newt Gingrich's wife happens to work for the president. And many others have said, Mr. President, you made a mistake. You did not do what was right in Helsinki, standing shoulder to shoulder with Vladimir Putin. You should not have criticized and attacked American intelligence and say you believed Vladimir Putin when he said he did not meddle, they did not meddle in the 2016 presidential election over American intelligence. And all I'm saying is this. I don't care who you voted for. I don't care what your politics is. This is a show about leadership. And good leadership to me, Mary, and we'll bring Nick Matarazzo on in a second about this and other topics. I say, and I'm praying that in the time we're taping and this show airs, that President Trump, whom I respect on many levels, while I did not vote for him, says I did not handle this well. Great leaders are about having the ego and the security to say, I did not do this well. It was a bad day. I misspoke. It was a mistake, and I need to own it. I'm not thinking he will. You say?
I say most likely not. He's not proven himself to step up and be that leader that we want and need him to be.
And you're no Trump hater, by the way.
Exactly. And I did vote for Trump, but mainly just because I wanted change. I wanted to see something new. It was a risk. But I have never seen him yet apologize in a way that made sense, that felt real and genuine. And that's a very poor leadership trait for sure.
So, folks, here's the thing. And as you want to express your views to me, you can go on our website, stand-deliver.com. You can also check me out on Twitter, Mary.
On Twitter, Steve Adubato. That's Steve, Adubato. But also on Facebook, Steve Adubato, PhD.
Thank you. So, listen, as we bring Nicky Matz on, he didn't come to talk about politics or Donald Trump or anything else, but I am going to talk about the question of ego, something I know very well. Stop with the smirk on your face, Mary. My conclusion is that ego, when it gets in the way, and if it's in the way for the president, meaning he cannot say that the Russians meddled because in his mind, if the Russians meddled, somehow it means he's not the elected president of the country, which he is. And I respect him as our president. I think his ego may be getting in the way. And for all of us as leaders, forget about Trump. I know when ego gets in the way. For me, I make bad decisions. I don't conduct myself in a way that makes sense. My judgment is impaired. I feel petty, small, and I make bad decisions. And I can hear in the background a guy who has a very strong and healthy ego, not just because he's in the Hall of Fame at Montclair State University for basketball, which I was proud when he was inducted that day, and not just because he's a great golfer, but because he's a great leader. Nick Matarazzo, who is in fact otherwise known as Nicky Mats. Nick Matarazzo is president Hearst Autos. How you doing, my friend?
Morning, Steve. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning.
Hey, Nick, question. You don't have to talk about Trump if you don't want to, but I do want to talk about this. You've got a strong, confident demeanor about yourself. You always have. On the basketball court, in golf, and in leadership. How do you separate, and I know you didn't plan on talking about this, how do you separate having strong confidence in yourself with allowing your, quote, ego to get in the way of the decisions you need to make as a leader?
Steve, I'm staring at a sign in my office that says, check your ego at the door.
Get out of here, Nick. Really?
Check your ego at the door.
You need that sign, Steve.
Be quiet, Mary. I'm listening to Nick. Go ahead, Nick.
They should embroider it on your golf bag, by the way.
Nice.
Nick, could we leave me out of it? See, by the way, what's that sign mean to you?
It impairs your decision-making because it becomes about you and not about the goal of what you're trying to accomplish. Well, I don't care if it's President Trump talking to Putin or whatever. That meeting yesterday was about him. In fact, everything he does is about him.
And you're not a Trump hater. I just want to clarify that.
I'm not a Trump hater, nor am I a Trump liker. I think, personally, I think he's a knucklehead. But he's the president, and because of that title and because of the position he holds, I will show him respect.
Same here.
But I will also tell you that had I been in the positions that he's been in, I would have made very different decisions at very different times. And some of the things he wants to do are correct. It's the manner in which he approaches it and the way he speaks about it.
You know, it's funny.
When he talks to people or down to people.
Nick, let's stay on this because you and I have had countless conversations. In all seriousness, Nick and I are golf partners. We're not adversaries, but we're rivals on the golf course. He, in fact, takes, not that gambling is appropriate. Is it legal in New Jersey, sports gambling?
It is, yes, sports gambling, so you guys can have at it.
Yes, Nikki has taken more from me, but more to the point. We have a lot of conversations in those carts. And Nikki talks about his management and leadership style, his communication style. Nick, you're direct, you're to the point, you do not hold back. The question is this: how do you manage being as direct as you are, particularly around very tough decisions and telling people when they're not doing a good job, not performing, delivering bad news, or whatever you want to describe it, and communicating in a way that's demeaning? Where the heck is the line, Nick?
The way I approach it, especially when we're in meetings and there's several people in the meeting, is I always find that questions, a lot of questions, actually lead to good answers.
What do you mean?
First of all, when we're in a meeting and there's a problem, I usually speak last. Because if I give my opinion first, people gravitate to, okay, he runs the company, I need to side with him or not.
By the way, Nick, I just want to plug. We're on radio, so I just want to remind folks you're listening to Nick Matarazzo. He is the president of Hearst Autos. By the way, Nick, well, I'll pick you up in a second. How long have you been there?
I've been with the Hearst Corporation since 2011.
You've seen a few things. Pick up your point, Nick, about not speaking first in a meeting.
Well, when there's a problem and we're trying to solve a problem as a group or we're not achieving our goals, I'll ask a question and then I stop and I kind of go into the background and I let everybody talk about it, banter back and forth about it, and then I make observations. And I continue to ask questions. And over-communicate, right? Over-communicate.
Just give me some examples, Nick.
We are up front this year in digital advertising. We're plus 20%. And so you would think that after coming out of the gate and being plus 20% on people guaranteeing us that they're going to run advertising with us, that now the scatter market buys would take a similar avenue, and that's exactly what's not happening right now.
So what do you ask?
Off our goal. What's the problem? Now, the head of sales will tell you that, they pushed all the money up front, which is nonsense because they're running advertising in other places. But why aren't they running it with us?
But
so
Nick,
I continue to ask questions. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, Nick, do you think that people are honest, though? I mean, they know that they need to really answer your question, but if they do it honestly, they may actually they may be worried about hurting themselves in the process. So do you think that people are honest in that situation?
Well, that's a different question about, are you hiring the right people to run the various departments in your organization? But, you try to instill and continue to say, repetition is also critical. I don't want yes people. I don't want people to agree to me. I want people to push back. I don't corner the market on knowledge. These people are on the street. They're the ones who are fighting it out every day with agencies and clients. You need to tell me what's going on so we can make the right decisions moving forward.
So interesting. By the way, Steve Adubato here. This is the Steve Adubato Leadership Hour with my colleague Mary Gamba on AM 970 every Sunday at 2 p.m. on AM 970. Just about the best radio station coming out of New York. And also check us out on our podcast, Mary, which, how do folks get it these days?
They can go right to our website, stand-deliver.com, and we'll have a link from that website so they can subscribe to the podcast.
And we're soon, Brian Berdura is in the house. We're making some digital adjustments so that the podcast is even more accessible, correct?
Absolutely. People can listen and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and Google Play.
Love it. Nick Matarazzo on the phone right now from Hearst Autos. Nick, let me try this. Delivering bad news, right? You've had to do it. You'll do it in the future. Why are some leaders, let's just say they lack the intestinal fortitude sometimes to do it themselves, and somehow it winds up in the hands of people who have, whether it's more courage or whatever the heck you want to call it, delivering bad news. I mean, really bad news affects people's lives. What's up with that in leadership or cowardly leadership?
As a person who runs any company, you need to be transparent with the organization, because success comes from, and this is my opinion, but comes from trust. And you need to be straight up with your team, because, look, the market's changing. Whether it's on the advertising side, whether it's the car market, whether it's the fashion beauty market. And, the market will continue to be disrupted based on the fragmentation of media and how people consume media day in and day out and all the messaging that they can get bombarded with, especially with smartphones. How do you deliver a message on a smartphone if you're an advertiser and make it stick? So change is around it. You have a choice. You can bury your head in the sand, or you can embrace it. And that takes a lot of nurturing, and change requires adapting and basically new habits. And you need to be very, very concise and very crystal clear on what the goals are as you go through change.
It's interesting with Nick. Mary, do you remember Nick Matarazzo is on the phone with us right now? Nick is the president of Hearst Autos. A couple of years ago, you remember I wrote about Nick in one of our books? I wrote a story about Nick.
I think it was in You Are the Brand, right?
I think it was You Are the Brand. By the way, all 5 books can be found
on stand-deliver.com.
Nikki, did we plug too much, Nick?
No. In fact, it was You Are the Brand, and the overview on me is on page 115.
That is impressive.
So on page 115 on You Are the Brand. So I remember writing about Nick because it was an interesting time in Nick's life, without recounting it too much. But Nick had, let's just say, he was challenged himself professionally in terms of where he was going to be and whether he had a place in the marketplace. And he had to I don't know if it's reinvent yourself, but I marveled at how tough Nick was to get back up and say, all right, so-and-so may not want me in a certain position, but I have enough confidence to go back out there. Let's say a little past midway through your career, Nick, and you just jumped right back in. Talk about that in leadership, confidence, before I let you go. And where's that confidence come from, by the way?
I'm a big believer that a lot of what I learned from playing sports and leading a basketball team and being a team player, because there are no Michael Jordans in any organization. I'm only as good as the people that surround me, and that's a fact. And any leader who tells you otherwise is kidding themselves, and they're going to hit some pretty big speed bumps. But what you're specifically talking about is I put together a plan when the market got very, very difficult in 2009. And the plan was, hey, this is brilliant, Matarazzo, that's great. And the chair started to move, And, you remember the game Duck, Duck, Goose. Well, guess what? Musical chairs. When I went to sit down, there was no chair left. And they were apologetic.
Yeah.
And I was let go. And
Nicky
I
was
looked at
out.
them and said,
You were out, Nicky.
Yep, I was out. And I looked at them and said, you're making the wrong move because the people you want to run this don't have the skill set to do both digital and print. Long story short, 9 months later, they called me back and said, you were right. Will you come back as CEO?
But how did you not lose confidence in yourself is the question, Nick.
Well, the first 48 hours, you're looking in the mirror going, what did I do wrong? Where did I misstep? And then it's like, okay, I have a family, I have kids in college. I need to go do something. And I started a consulting firm, and, I had a good reputation. You need to be straight with people. You need to be straight up. You need to be crystal clear what the objective is, and you need to follow through with it. And by the way, that objective and that goal may be wrong. You need to pivot. You need to be nimble enough to pivot and move on. And you need to rally your troops.
Wow.
Because, again, you're only as good as the people that surround you.
And by the way, Mary and I it was our friend Larry Downs who called it strategic agility.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Larry Downs, by the way, Larry Downs, the CEO of New Jersey Resources, just come on board as the initial lead sponsor, major sponsor of the Steve Adubato Leadership Hour. So thank you to Larry Downs and the folks at New Jersey Resources. So, Nick, listen, final advice for Mary and I as we continue to move forward with the Steve Adubato Leadership Hour. Any advice to us? Because you're a natural coach, Nicky. You're a natural coach.
Here's what I'm going to tell you, and it goes to that point you just said, Steve. Help others, and you'll help yourself. Coach those people. Inspire them. Help others, and you'll help yourself.
Nicky, any advice for me on the golf course which would be helpful in beating you in the near future?
First of all, bring more money on Saturday. It's my first advice to you. The second thing is you need not let anyone distract you within our foursome. It seems to be your focus is a little off these last couple of weeks because certain people just hate to get under your skin.
Okay, we were not going to mention any names. Mary, I'm looking at Mary. She's trying to figure out who it is. I'll tell you.
Well, I mean, it's you and Nick and only two other people. So I got a 50-50 chance here.
You remember Mary and I did the last time we taped, Mary said there's always one. There's always one in a group who I call him the Eddie Haskell of our group. Mary knows who it is now. But as a leader, you have to have the discipline. You do. You have to have the.
You can't break clubs. You can't throw clubs.
No,
not that you've ever done that. I mean, you've never done that before, right?
Nicky, I want to let you go at this point because Mary's going down the wrong path. Nick, I love you. You're the best. You're a great leader and an even better friend. Mary, you want to say anything to Nicky Matz?
Thank you so much, Nick.
My pleasure. Thank you, Steve. Manage your attention and your emotions, and you'll be a great golfer.
Talk to you soon. Talk to you this weekend, Nick.
All right. Thanks for having me on, guys.
You got it. That's so interesting. Let's go to a quick break. We'll have some interesting information, and we'll be right back on the Steve Adubato Leadership Hour on AM 970, The Answer.
This is Mary Gamba. If you want more leadership tips and tools, log on to stand-deliver.com. That's stand-deliver.com.
Steve Adubato back. This is the Leadership Hour on AM 970, The Answer. I'm here with my colleague, Mary Gamba. We were just listening to Nick Matarazzo, who, in fact, is the president of Hearst Autos. Nicky's had a 30-year career. I mean, it started in magazines because Car and Driver, he was the guy. Mm-hmm. He was the top guy there. But then print turned into digital and change
happens. We get older, change happens. You can't resist it, and you just need to lead it.
Interesting. I always see you taking notes when we're listening to one of our smart leaders sharing his or her insight. A couple things you took away from Nicky Matarazzo.
It's amazing how many things translate from the golf course or sports of any kind into the workplace.
By the way, Nicky was the captain of the Bloomfield High School basketball team and then the captain of the Montclair State University, where we went to school at the time, basketball team, and was the point guard, which means he was, in fact, in hockey, you're a hockey fan, who would be the person basically making things happen
Probably
for
the
others?
center. The center is the one that makes stuff happen and can go anywhere he wants.
But Nicky also set up other people to succeed. So go ahead, sports.
No, absolutely. And he had said manage your emotions and your demeanor on the golf course. And I think that's so critical for leaders. We were talking earlier about Donald Trump and just being able to the tips and tools of being a great leader and managing your emotions, regardless of whether Nick is taking your money as you're not playing golf well and you get frustrated, or if you let that one person, as we always talk about, the one get under your skin, it's on you as the leader.
It's not on that guy.
It is not on that
woman.
guy, no. And that's true in any case. If someone is really irritating you and you let it bother you, that person's not even thinking about it. So it's on you at that point.
So someone says, he made me a leader. Go back to leadership. Forget about golf and basketball and everything else. I've often said this to you. So-and-so on our team or so-and-so outside our team, he or she made me act that way. You say?
It's an easy excuse. It is so easy to point the finger at someone else when that happens instead of looking inward and saying, what should I have done? You can't control what other people do. You can only control what you do and how you deal with situations.
Stay on that. So the President Trump issue with respect to leadership, I've often heard people say, and the president say, I'm only saying this and acting this way and saying lots of things because the media is against me. The Democrats are against me. Forget about your politics. Is it a good enough reason for a leader, Donald Trump or anyone else, to say, I have to do this to counteract all the people who are coming after me and want to stop me from being president?
You don't move forward if you do that. If you make it about the situation, the thing, as you and I always talk about, if you make it about that and not about moving forward, you don't have to go from 0 to 60 in order to fix a problem. In other words, you don't need to get all angry and get upset and have your emotions get the best of you.
Or call someone a name on Twitter.
Exactly. Keep a level head and say what's going to be better for the nation, what's going to be better for the organization,
Well,
what's going to
me?
be.
Say I'm Donald Trump and Donald Trump says, wait a minute. People are challenging whether I'm the legitimate president of the United States, and I am not going to say in front of Vladimir Putin that, yes, they meddled in the election. Because if I say that, then it questions whether I'm the legitimate president, which, by the way, I don't know who anyone really questions whether he won the Electoral College, by the way, by a lot, not by a small margin. What about if he says, I'm only doing this to protect my legacy as president?
But leadership is about what you do, not what you say. So he can put out on Twitter all he wants about how he believes he's a leader, how he believes he's the president. You need to do it by your actions. You need to prove your leadership through your actions, not through just simply putting a post on Twitter. That's easy. Prove it by your actions, which he, in his defense, he has done a lot. But to then get petty and go in the direction of posting silly things.
Interesting word, petty.
Yeah, it is petty. It's petty, it's juvenile, it's childish. And that is when he lets his ego and his emotions get the best of him. But the most successful people that I've ever met in business have a huge ego. So there is something to be said for that link between leaders. I've never met a leader that does not have, I can't name one.
But stay on the ego thing. If your ego allows you to have the confidence to take certain risks and try certain things and be bold, that's positive ego.
That is positive ego.
Where does it turn?
It turns when you make it more about yourself than you do about the success of your team, your organization, and in Donald Trump's case, the nation.
And again, I want to repeat that, Mary. I love when people say, oh, those liberals, let's not, Mary Gambit would not be called a liberal in any world. She voted for the president. She clearly wants presidents to succeed, as I do as well. But I'm going to say this. Let's just go back to the apology issue. I know we've talked about this before on the Leadership Hour. This is Steve Adubato here with Mary Gamba. We are, in fact, on AM 970, The Answer. Check us out on our podcast as well on stand-deliver.com. Soon to be available, Brian, on
iTunes and Google Play.
Thank you, Brian Brodeur. I think President Trump truly believes, and I don't know this for sure, that if he says, I screwed up, and by the way, I'm praying that by the time this airs, we're taping it the day after Helsinki with President Trump and President Putin. If he says, I screwed up, I think he thinks it's a sign of leadership weakness or weakness as a leader. And you and I have said a million times, that's not true.
Correct. It's not true. Admitting your mistakes, it not only shows others how to lead. Again, as a leader, you want to show through your actions how others in your organization should also act. So by you apologizing, if someone else were to make a mistake in the organization, they will have the confidence to also own it. And then not only own it, but then say what I'm going to do differently in the future.
Okay, but Nick Matarazzo from Hearst Autos also said this. Part of leadership is surrounding yourself with the right folks. And the question I have is, and Nick said you can't have, quote, yes people, he called them, yes men or women. A good friend of mine, formerly the president of Fox News, who I'm very close to, Bill Shine. And you know Bill from my work with Bill. He's my former producer and director at another network. Bill actually was brought in to be in my view, the leader of communications in the White House. And by the time this airs, I hope he's still there. He just got there. Bill's always been a straight-up guy, honest, strong leader. I respect him. Yes, he did get caught up in some of the scandals involving Roger Ailes there, and some people believe he may not have spoken up enough. I don't know enough to say, but I will say he's been nothing but a man of integrity dealing with me. I'm hoping he has whatever it takes as a leader to say to President Trump or someone there, John Kelly as the chief of staff or whomever else, Sarah Sanders, Mr. President, this was a mistake. We need to fix it immediately. What does it take to not be the top leader, but to be a leader underneath that leader doing that? How courageous?
It's extremely courageous, and it's also a sign of...
Yeah, well, you do it every day, but go ahead.
I was just going to say that. You and I, but it didn't start that way. When I started working here 18 plus years ago, it did not start with me having the confidence to say to you, Steve, you really didn't handle that well.
Sorry, Mary, the stakes are higher when the world, the nation is involved. So therefore, these people, you were a kid, I was clearly older than you, but we were starting. This is different. Stakes higher.
It is different.
You don't have as much time, by the way. They don't have as much time.
Exactly. It's very finite, in terms of really just a few years, getting it right and figuring it out and having those people behind him in order to tell him really what he needs to hear, not what he wants to hear, is really going to help him succeed even greater, than he ever imagined. But again, it's leaving your ego at the door. Nick talked about that sign being on his door that says that every day. And it is a constant reminder because it's hard. Think about the power trip. You're the president of the free world. You're out there. You're the guy. You're the man. He was the man before he was the president in his mind. He was out there. He got his name out there. Trump this, Trump that. And now he really is. You can't get bigger than the president of the United States.
But it's different. Leadership in the private sector in a privately held company where you can make it Trump ties, Trump water, Trump meat, Trump tower, Trump airline, Trump
meat? He had Trump meat?
Brian, didn't he?
I did not realize
steaks.
that.
Just Trump steaks.
Wow.
There's something that you and I, and tell you about this, Steve Steaks, we're going to create. No. But is leadership different? Steve Adubato here with Mary Gamba. This is the Leadership Hour. Did not plan on talking about this today, but it's the day after Helsinki. Is leadership, in your view, different as the president in a very public situation versus president of a privately held company? Or is just leadership, good leadership, bad leadership, bad leadership? It doesn't really matter.
I think that the leadership, it does matter. Tremendously, it matters. And that's why he is under the microscope as much as he is in terms of his outward facing. But if he takes all the skills and tools that he learned leading these organizations and finding himself in a difficult situation, if it's bankruptcy or what have you, and then building back up again.
Which says a lot about perseverance.
Right, exactly. And again, I didn't vote for Trump because, I think Trump is amazing, but I also saw what he was able to do in his corporations. And personally, I feel that a country should be run like a corporation. The politics aside, the who's giving money to which person, so this way they get the deal or they get the contract to build that bridge or those roadways.
Yeah, but you still have to get along with people and build relationships, what you and I talk about, with Congress, with leaders of other countries in NATO. I mean, it's not like in private business, you and I spend 3/4 of our time talking about relationship building. Yeah. How good do you think the president is at relationship building as a leadership tool?
I think that he's doing great. I mean, he, everything that he's doing right now, getting out there, going over to South Korea and North Korea and making all of that happen. I think that, what, you don't think so?
I'm not going to make it political.
No.
You think that going to a NATO meeting as a leader, and I'm not going to say, because this is a station with religious connections, getting people peeved, let's say, from the NATO coalition who are our allies and right in their face saying, hey, you got to pay your bills. You need to pay more. You're screwing the United States. And by the way, you have Germany, you have a deal with Russia for oil. You should get Russia from us right in front of everybody in a meeting. Then he's next to Putin. He's like, well, listen, you told me you didn't do this and I believe you and you're very strong when you said it. I'm going to argue that relationship building is questionable there.
Yeah, no, I agree with you in that instance. But overall, I feel in his time so far in office, in terms of building relationships and sticking by what he said he was going to do, the economy right now, unless I'm wrong.
Listen, I believe in all that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about with people who are not your friends naturally, making friends with them. Part of leadership. Go ahead.
It is, but fake friends is not what we need in leadership. It's the same as we were talking before.
It's called diplomacy.
Diplomacy, yes. It's definitely, he needs to have a little bit more tact when he goes and is out there. Tact would be nice. But if he went in there and just, kiss this one, kiss that one, all the hands around the world and butts around the world and said, hey, listen, and then behind their back is saying something totally different. I prefer a leader who is out front. What you see is what you get.
But what about if he did that with Putin right next to him? Hey, listen, Mr. President, I respect you. I want to have a great relationship. But come on, you and I both know you meddled. Mm-hmm. That's not...
I mean, that's where it gets into shades of gray, and that he's definitely teetering on, you could really anger somebody, and next thing you know, I mean, it could all fall apart. But so far, it's worked for him. It has. I personally believe it has.
It's so interesting because you're willing to mock all kinds of people, but somehow, listen. I'm fighting, and in a few seconds we have left, I'm not going to make it political. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say that consistency is part of leadership too. And not that you treat everyone exactly the same way because they're all different.
Right.
But I'd love to see the president. And again, I'm praying that by the time this airs, the president has said, I did not handle myself well. I made a mistake. I think it would make him an even stronger leader if he did that. And by the way, just to repeat in my book, I write extensively about Hillary Clinton's inability to say, I screwed up. Benghazi, I screwed up with the emails. Do it up front, not be forced into it, not have a phony apology. I said it about President Obama screwing up the launch of the healthcare.gov website. He blew it. They blew it. Took way too long to say it. So to me, it's not political. It's consistency about leadership. Mary, final words as we let go of this week of Leadership Hour. By the way, what's coming up next in the next half hour?
What is coming up next is State of Affairs with Steve Adubato.
Isn't that all about leadership in the public sector?
It sure is, absolutely.
Listen, check us out on our website.
stand-deliver.com, and you can follow Steve on Twitter at Steve Adubato, Adubato.
Listen, folks, another fascinating edition of the Leadership Hour in the books. And we'll check you out next week on AM 970, The Answer at 2 p.m. on Sunday. Thanks to our great friends at AM 970 for helping to make this happen. Check you out next time.
This is Mary Gamba. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with State of Affairs with Steve Adubato, where we look at the most pressing issues facing the state of New Jersey.
This edition of the Steve Adubato Leadership Hour has been made possible by New Jersey Resources.
Hi, I'm Chris Giamo, and at TD Bank, we believe all citizens need to be informed about the important financial issues that affect their daily lives. That's why we're proud to support programming produced by the Caucus Educational Corporation.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Agnes Veris NJTV studio at 2 Gateway. Funding has been provided by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, the Turrell Fund, supporting Right from the Start NJ, New Jersey Sharing Network, dedicated to saving lives through organ and tissue donation, TD Bank, PSE&G, committed to providing safe, reliable energy now and in the future. St. Joseph's Health, a passion for healing. It's what's inside us. And by Adler Aphasia Center, helping stroke and brain injury survivors recover their speech.
Welcome to State of Affairs. I'm Steve Adubato. We are, in fact, coming to you from the Agnes Veris NJTV studio in Brick City, Newark, New Jersey. It is my honor, pleasure to introduce for the first time on State of Affairs Sue Fulton, who is Chair and Chief Administrator, New Jersey Motor Vehicle Commission. Good to see you, Chief.
Thanks so much, Steve. Happy to be here.
You're at a cocktail party. Someone says, what exactly do you do? How do you answer that?
I say I run all the DMVs in New Jersey because everybody knows what the DMV is.
Right.
Even though that's, we've been Motor Vehicle Commission for, since 2005 or something.
A bit of a branding issue?
Well, I've talked to motor vehicle administrators across the country. They all have the same issue. They call it whatever, but people know the DMV.
The responsibilities include? Break that down for us.
Primarily, it's licensing and registration. Now, licensing includes not just your individual license that everybody's familiar with, but the commercial driver's license as well. And there are any number of endorsements depending on the kind of vehicle that you're licensed to drive. And then registrations, the same thing: title, lien, registrations, all of the things in that category.
Technology. Anyone who's been out there, and we all have to do what we are supposed to do as it relates to our cars and their safety and renewing our license, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm curious, how has technology, say in the last 5 years, just 3 to 5 years, changed the way you and your colleagues work?
Well, that's a dicey question because
Why?
Because technology changes, but keep in mind, motor vehicles, and this isn't just New Jersey, this is across the United States, motor vehicles has some 60, 70 years of data. And most states have this data stored in mainframes that date back, usually to like the 70s or the, maybe early 80s. So the upside, the downside of that is obvious. You're talking about hardware that's dated. But by the same token, you're also talking about hardware that's very secure, that's very, very tough to invade or to hack. So we are not at the same place with information technology that corporations might be, because this is a massive amount of data that we're keeping safe. By the same token, there are so many different developments that have influenced this. Right now, there are states that are looking at mobile driver licenses, meaning having your driver license on your phone. So the data is secured, but so let's say you get pulled over, your phone gets pinged with a request from law enforcement. What's to release your driver license? You give that permission, and before the officer gets to your car, he can take a look at that license and review everything, so he knows that everything's on the up and up. This is your vehicle because he's looking at your license plate, and then he's already got that information. The other thing with a mobile driver license, and I'm selling technology that we're not ready to move to.
But it is, do certain states actually do this?
There are pilot programs with a mobile driver license.
So as opposed to across the state, Maryland's piloting it.
Right.
Do you folks talk to each other about better ways to do what you do?
Absolutely. The American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators is a national organization. The people who are running it are people who've had years of experience in this arena. The administrators, as well as their senior staff, we talk to each other about best practices. The thing about moving technology is that, we can't put the car in the shop to change all the technology, right? Because we're serving millions of transactions every year.
Millions.
Transactions.
Absolutely.
Every year. So, we close, look at the impact when we have a computer outage, as we've had, and people can't get served. There are a number of New Jerseyans who are inconvenienced by that. So we have to keep our services going while we do upgrades. We're fixing the car while it's moving, right?
I love it.
So as a consequence, a lot of us, as I said, in all the states, we're a little bit behind, but we're looking at ways, particularly in New Jersey, to do that in a reasonable and practical way.
By the way, let's put up the website for the Motor Vehicle Commission. We are, in fact, speaking to Sue Fulton, who is the chair. The chief, I apologize. The chief.
Chair and chief administrator. So
I got it.
Yes.
The chief of the Motor Vehicle Commission in the state. I was telling you before we got on the air that we've been involved in public awareness and education around organ and tissue donation with some folks at the Sharing Network that you know very well. The one thing and by the way, there are thousands, literally thousands of New Jerseyans and many, many more Americans waiting for an organ to survive, to live. What exactly is the process in terms of your renewing of the license, and what can you do? A loaded question, I know we're talking about technology. Can they actually go online and register as an organ donor?
You absolutely can, Steve. And so let me talk about when you go in for your initial license or you go into an agency for your renewal, there's a signature pad there, and it will prompt you, do you want to be an organ donor?
Straight up, yes or no?
That's right. That's right. It's that easy. And if you say yes, that's recorded on your card, and you're registered in the National Registry as well. Now, say you haven't opted to be an organ donor in the past, and you want to change that. Your license isn't expiring, you're not really due for renewal, you can still go online.
Even if you have not registered as an organ donor in the past, you can do it even if you're not up for renewal.
That's exactly right. You can go online, and in fact, the law was passed that other changes to your driver license, if you're not due, will cost you money. Changing your status as an organ donor costs you nothing. Nothing. You go in, you change that, I now want to be reflected as an organ donor, and that will be changed. We will send your information to the National Registry of Organ Donors so that they're aware of that, and that costs you nothing.
By the way, we are in fact speaking to Sue Fulton, the chief of New Jersey Motor Vehicle Commission. I was saying I happen to go where I live. East Orange is closest to me. And I like the people are great there and everything's fine. But for people who say, you know what? Those lines, and there were times, and there have been times,
Sure.
that they're really long. What specifically is being done to ameliorate that?
That's a great question, Steve. And there's not a magic wand we can wave that's gonna alleviate the waits at motor vehicles. It's a lot of little improvements that we need to make. Now, there are some IT improvements. You mentioned IT earlier. There was, in the past administration, they touted a transformation project that was going to modernize all our systems. What ended up happening was all those resources were diverted to Real ID. And if I might talk about Real ID for a minute, Real ID is going to be the new federal standard for identification. So as of October of 2020, if you want to fly domestically, or if you want to enter a federal facility, a military facility, or for certain federal benefits, for federal purposes, you need to meet the Real ID standard. That requires changes on our part at Motor Vehicle Commission. So it is a priority that we have to convert over to Real ID, huge IT lift. That said, all of the modernization efforts that had been talked about and planned, all that funding and resources went into Real ID. So we haven't done the kinds of modernization we need to do. Modernization that would, for instance, allow you to schedule appointments.
As opposed to just going cold.
As opposed to just going in and then standing on that line and waiting. There are some IT projects that would allow you to do more online. Now, I will say, right now, the use of our online services, for instance, you can...
Got a few seconds left. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Renew your registration. Use of online services is very low.
You're saying you can renew
your registration online. Don't even go to
Hold on. I'm due for my license. I can't do it online. I have to go to... I just want to clarify. I have to go to one of the offices.
Okay.
Registration is different.
Two things. One, registration is different.
I don't want to make this about me. I just know there's a lot of other people dealing with this. Go ahead.
Let's make it about you, Steve.
No, don't.
Okay. No, registration renewal you can do online. You go online with that.
Put the website up.
With that envelope. With that envelope you get, it's got a PIN number. You go online. You renew your registration online. Now, driver renewals, every 4 years you have to renew that driver license.
They got to see you.
Only every 8 years.
Really?
Only every 8 years. So what will happen is you're ready for a driver license renewal, you'll get another envelope, and on there it'll say skip the trip, mail this in, and you mail it in. You don't have to go in.
You can find that on the website. It's up there right now.
Absolutely.
Can we find that out?
Skip the trip for your driver license renewal and registration renewals online.
You are the chief, Chief Sue Fulton, who is the chair and chief administrator, New Jersey Motor Vehicle Commission. I promise you I will get to where I need to go and take care of it. And by the way, everybody else do the right thing.
You bet.
Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Stay right there.
All right.
See how we matched? We coordinated.
We did. We worked this out.
No, we didn't. Back right after this.
To see more State of Affairs with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at stateofaffairsnj.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, PhD. And follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
He's back again, Dr. Joe Marbach, President, Georgian Court University. Good to see you, Doctor.
Great to be here, Steve. Thanks.
You and I have a lot of offline conversations about the mood, political discourse, polarization in our nation. Do I make too much of it?
I don't think so, Steve. I've never seen politics this strained in the 30 years that I've been studying.
And you're a political scientist.
Political scientist by training, yes. So, and then just applying it and seeing how it affects our students. At college campuses, it used to be depression was the #1 issue for mental health. Now it's anxiety. And
about?
Everything. They're worried about the jobs they're going to get, but they're worried about the political climate, the
worried
election.
about conversations going on in North Korea?
Yeah, and who's pointing missiles at them and
that's
those
real.
sorts of things.
That's real for people.
It is, but I think a generation grew up with it as almost the norm, and then we dialed back that nuclear threat, whatever the Cold War was. And now all of a sudden it's reemerged. And you've got shooting in high schools and metal detectors and things that a whole generation of folks never grew up with that this generation of students are facing on a daily basis.
At Georgian Court, to what degree are you able to facilitate an environment or create an environment where there's open dialogue with different points of view politically, where people can feel, dare I use the word safe, Joe?
Well, we try to be safe, at least within the conversation, and we certainly are physically safe. Georgian Court is one of the safest campuses
Tell
in
everyone
New
where you
Jersey.
are, by the way.
We're down in Lakewood, New Jersey, so in Ocean County, just on the edge of Monmouth County.
Right.
So we have a safe physical place, but it's a place where you can exchange ideas in a safe way and not be insulted. You know, one of your leadership pieces was about leaders recognizing differences in others and not mocking other folks.
Are you the one who read it?
I might be.
Yeah, I write a column on leadership, and I am fascinated by the name calling, the mocking, but I am fascinated also by the role of higher education in all this. You and I, Joe's been a part of so many of our conversations about affordability in higher education, the partnering, if you will, of higher ed institutions, four-year institutions with two-year institutions, et cetera. We'll talk about that in a second. But what do you see as the role of higher education in the current environment?
Well, it's teaching people how to listen and
Even when they
express
disagree?
differences and disagree, to disagree but not be disagreeable. I think that's the key. We can disagree but not be disagreeable. So let me understand your point of view and give me the same courtesy. Understand my point of view and why we're different, where we can come together, and in some areas we may just agree to disagree.
Let's talk a little bit about Georgian Court. I was mentioning the whole 2- and 4-year initiative. Any of that going on with you guys?
Oh, we're at the forefront of it. I've got 6 arrangements with community colleges to transfer.
2-year
their
schools.
2-year schools,
Talk about it.
our local 2-year schools. Well, 60% of my undergraduate students are transfer students. So Georgian Court is very different than the traditional 4-year school. We're not always looking at 18-year-olds. We're bringing in 20-year-olds. And so we've had a long-standing partnership with Brookdale Community College.
That's down the shore, right?
Down the shore, right? It's in Monmouth County. We're teaching courses at their Hazlitt campus. We're working with their students to come in from their main campus and transfer right into our Lakewood campus. So we're there. We've signed recent agreements with Cumberland County where we offer a bachelor's in social work degree on their site for the needs of that community. And we're spreading out throughout New Jersey. By
the way, Jackie, remind me of that. Dr. Marbach's going to be joining us with Dr. Stout,
Dr. Stout, Dave Stout, yeah.
From
Brookdale. He just was named president of Brookdale.
So we're talking about the 2- and 4-year school situation. Let me try this. The higher education issue. We actually have a roundtable coming up with some hospital presidents about this, about affordability. Is the affordability crisis, if you will, the ability to afford college, is it getting any better, Joe?
In some ways it is, especially for students at the lower socioeconomic end. New Jersey is very generous with our tuition assistance grants, the TAG grants.
Right.
And when you have a student that can apply a TAG grant and a Pell grant, and if they have very, very low income levels, they can get to about half the tuition of a Georgian Court. And then we'll meet them with some merit aid. They'll be able to take in some loans, reasonable loans, about $4,000 a year, so that they can graduate with manageable debt, and we can put them into a career where they're going to be able to pay that debt. And we like to brag about the values we instill in our students, and we have a very low default rates on student loans as they come through the system. So we're trying to make it more affordable, and these 2-year partnerships allow us to do that. Just one quick commercial message. If a student goes to...
It's PBS, watch that.
Watch it. Right. If a student goes to Brookdale Community College for their first 2 years, they pay about $10,000. If that student then transfers to the Hazlitt location of Georgian Court, they'd pay about $15,000 a year each year after that. So for about $40,000 a year, a student can get a 4-year degree between Brookdale and Georgian Court.
By the way, we are speaking to Joe Marbach, Dr. Joe Marbach. When he was at a previous institution of higher learning, he was always with us talking about political issues that happened to be Seton Hall University. But he is now the president. For how long have you been the president of Georgian Court?
Just finished my 3rd year.
Congratulations. And by the way, we work closely with Georgian Court as one of the institutions of higher learning that helps us do what we do here. Real quick on this. There is a collaboration. I've been expanding your operation into Hunterdon County. What does that mean?
Well, we're working with the developers who are...
That's down the Jersey Shore.
We were, but part of my job is to make Georgian Court a regional university, and so we're expanding our footprint. And so now we're offering classes in 7 different counties. We've been offering our graduate education programs in school districts in Essex, in Mercer County, in Union County. We're in Ocean and Monmouth counties, and we're in Middlesex
Is geography a problem there?
It's not a problem, but what we've done is our philosophy is take our product to where our students are. Take the education.
Oh, bring it there.
Bring it there, yes.
So they don't have to go to...
No, so we're offering hybrid classes. We're offering classes right in the districts. And we see Hunterdon County as an area of opportunity. Hunterdon County is the only county in New Jersey without a 2- or 4-year institution within the county boundaries. That's the one. They send their students to Raritan Valley, and we just signed a partnership with Raritan Valley Community College so that we can meet some of the needs and develop in downtown Flemington.
Dr. Joe Marbach, before I let you go, online programs growing?
They are growing, yes, and they've grown up organically. I'm so proud of our faculty that have taken the bull by the horn to meet the students where they are.
We'll be, Joe Marbach will be joining us on our sister program, One-on-One, except it'll be One-on-Two. You will be with, again?
President Dave Stout, yes.
Joe Marbach, President. Dr. Joe Marbach, President of Georgian Court University. Thank you, my friend.
Thanks, Steve. Good to see
We
you.
talk politics on and off the air. Right back right after this.
To see more State of Affairs with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at stateofaffairsnj.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, PhD. And follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
State of Affairs is pleased to welcome Cecilia Zalkind, who is President and CEO, Advocates for Children of New Jersey. Cecilia, you've been with us many times. You love every time you're with us.
I do.
But this is a continuation of a conversation we've been having in connection to an initiative, a public awareness initiative called Right from the Start NJ. You'll see the website that's coming up right as we speak. Go on the website, find out more information. All about helping infants, toddlers, 0 to 3, if you will. Why is it such a pressing issue?
Well, we know so much more now about how babies grow and develop and how important those early years are. That's the time of the greatest brain development. A lot of things that happen in the future, for good and bad, are set in those early years.
Yeah. You just, not too long ago, we're doing this right before the state budget is supposed to be struck, we hope. Last day of June, but last month, was last month or earlier in June? Rolling Thunder.
Strolling Thunder was May 21st.
Isn't it with the motorcycles, the other one?
Yes. No, there's Strolling Thunder, too.
But this is Strolling Thunder. This is a Think Babies national campaign, all part of it, courtesy of our great friends here at NJTV News. This is a clip from a story that, I think Andrew Schmertz did the story, a great story from NJTV News. This sets up this walk, this demonstration, this message that's being delivered down in the State House, and we'll come back and talk to Cecile. Here we go.
Based on the theory that bringing cute kids to a political rally is a good way to get attention, a coalition of state child advocacy groups strolled to the Capitol to call on lawmakers to improve child services.
I think New Jersey is ahead of the country in some areas. We have the best preschool program in the country, but it starts at age 3. We have a family leave program, but not a lot of families can access it. So what we feel is we're on a great pathway. We can make it much better.
The event, Strolling Thunder, arranged by the group 0 to 3, is part of a nationwide campaign to highlight issues like childcare, paid family leave, and services for expectant mothers. About 150 of New Jersey's youngest came out with their moms and a few dads during a rather festive rally. Danelle Robinson will soon be a mother of 3.
I'm really advocating for childcare because I'm learning now how much childcare really is. And with 3 children in childcare, that's basically, everything that I kind of make.
The group, Advocates for Children of New Jersey, says the state is woefully underprepared to take care of the 200,000 New Jersey infants. The group says there are only licensed child care centers to handle about 56,000 of the newborns, leaving parents to turn to other expensive daycare options. A survey by Care.com, a company that helps families find child and senior care, says parents spend an average of 20% of their income on child care.
In New Jersey, we need increased funding for early prenatal care. We need support for new parents through home visiting programs. And we need affordable, quality child care.
Steve Adubato here. I want to thank our colleagues at NJTV News for that terrific clip. Cecilia Zalkind, let me ask you. You just heard the Assemblywoman Lopez talking about we need dollars, we need resources to do what?
Well, I think we need to invest in babies to make sure that they have the best opportunity to grow and develop. Our advocacy is we need to start with childcare. So we were thrilled that Assemblywoman Lopez talked about that. Almost 65% of babies have parents in the workforce. There's not enough spaces in licensed centers to take care of them. This is a critical time for brain development. This is a time where children need a nurturing, supportive environment that helps them grow. New Jersey is woefully inadequate on every level in terms of childcare for babies.
You know, we were up in Vermont, Cecilia and I were up in Vermont. It was a conference with the folks in Vermont and the folks in New Jersey who are engaged in this conversation around infants and toddlers, 0 to 3, if you will. The Terrell Fund actually sponsored that event. I'm going to ask you something. Vermont is engaged in this. New Jersey is engaged in it. Is the rest of the nation engaged in this conversation, or is it just a couple of states that have funding to do this from private foundations and philanthropic organizations? Help us understand this.
No, I think we're at the beginning of a movement.
Nationally?
Nationally.
By the way, check out our interview with U.S. Senator Cory Booker yesterday. We talked about this topic. He had a lot to say about it. Go ahead.
I do think we're on the beginning of a trend toward looking at babies. Many states like New Jersey have invested in preschool, which is wonderful.
That's the pre-K?
Yes, but it starts at age 3. And I think people are beginning to realize that a lot of learning goes on before age 3. So if you look across the country, you have states taking a look at what's happening to babies. And for babies, the education is childcare. That's where they are outside the family. Some states, like New Jersey, Vermont, were part of the Think Babies National Initiative with 5 other states. We certainly, I think, are ahead of the curve. We have support to take on a campaign. But, you know, we're part of a couple of national networks, and other states are talking about this, too.
Let me ask you, we're doing this right before the state budget is, in fact, supposed to be struck. Are there items in this state budget that impact infants and toddlers?
Not enough. You know, that was one concern that we had. We were thrilled when Governor Murphy announced his budget, a real emphasis on working families and how do we ensure that families can work. But he left out childcare.
Hold on, respectfully, Celia, you were on that transition committee, the transition team with Governor Murphy. Did they hear your voice?
Yes, and actually we were able to get a recommendation around childcare into the transition report. I was hopeful, especially when the governor had such a focus on working families. You know, it's a tight budget, but we're very hopeful. We have legislative support to add money to the budget, at least to take a first step to improving access to childcare for babies.
By the way, real quick on this, I know we're on credits. Could you put up our website, excuse me, real quick, and I'll tell you why. Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver was on State of Affairs talking about this. You can't do it. It's steveadubato.org. Check it out. We got the Senate President talking about this, the Lieutenant Governor talking about this, State Senator Teresa Ruiz talking about this, as I said, Cory Booker talking about it. We'll continue this conversation, Cecilia. But you're hopeful, right? 15 seconds or less. You're hopeful?
Yes, we're hopeful. And if nothing else, we brought 160 babies to Trenton to remind our state leaders that babies are important.
And that is Strolling Thunder.
Yes,
and you were there with your family. That's all good.
Yes, I was.
Thank you, Seal. Steve Adubato, this is State of Affairs. Check you out next time.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Agnes Veris NJTV studio at 2 Gateway. Funding has been provided by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, the Terrell Fund, supporting Right from the Start NJ, New Jersey Sharing Network, TD Bank, PSC&G, St. Joseph's Health, and by Adler Aphasia Center. Promotional support provided by The Record, North Jersey's trusted source, and NorthJersey.com. And by Meadowlands Regional Chamber, building essential connections that drive business growth.
Autism is one of the fastest growing developmental disorders in the U.S. Here in New Jersey, 1 in every 41 children is diagnosed with autism. And when a child is diagnosed with autism, every member of the family is affected. While there currently is no cure for autism, early detection and intervention can offer critical improvements for the child and tremendous benefits for the family. To learn more about autism, contact the Binder Autism Center at St. Joseph's Children's Hospital.
I could feel my lungs fill with oxygen, and I got my life back.
Bashari Narek means to me hope, life, and everything.
The sharing network was a lifeline to me when I really needed it.
We are an organ procurement organization.
The core purpose of the New Jersey Sharing Network is to save and enhance lives.
To honor those who gave.
Pay tribute to those who received.
Offer hope to those who continue to wait.
And remember the lives lost while waiting.
For the gift of life.
This edition of the Steve Adubato Leadership Hour has been made possible by New Jersey Resources.